Welcome. You're listening to the Best of Investing on Fox News Radio 910 a.m. This is the show where we present valuable information about real estate, the financial markets, and other economic business of the day. For those of you listening for the first time, here's our format. A few guys sitting around a bar having drinks without the drinks, talking business with you, the audience, listening in. I'm your host, Edward Brown, and of course I'm joined by my co-host Mark Hahn of Pacific Private Money and Brian Burke of Praxis Capital. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Write that number down, 888-912-1190, because you're going to use that number to answer the trivia questions for 3 vacations given away during each commercial break. That's right, we're giving away 9 vacations during this show. The vacations are sponsored by Lighthouse Resort and Marina, located 1 hour northeast of San Francisco. Today's theme is animals in the movies. Kind of interesting there. And make sure, get this, make sure you listen to next week as we're having a special trivia contest where the winner will receive, get this, a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Ritz-Carlton Half Moon Bay.
The Ritz.
The Ritz.
Nice.
And the Ritz-Carlton, you can't call them the Ritz, it's the Ritz-Carlton Half Moon Bay.
Okay.
And they host the best brunch in the Bay Area, and as San Francisco Bay's only oceanfront resort, it is a golfer's paradise with 2 courses along the California coast with an unmatched wine program, including the ENO wine tasting room and monthly vintner series and dinners. And for a small fee, you can actually bring your pet. Check them out at theritzcarlton.com, Half Moon Bay. Now, for our vacations that we're giving away during the commercial breaks, the vacations are free. Their only request is a $75 cleaning fee to cover housekeeping expenses, and their website is lighthouseforfun.com. You can reach them at 916-777-5511. Don't forget our website, www.bestofinvesting.com. You can email questions or comments and check out our Facebook page. Quick reminder again, World Wraps and Corte Madera in Santa Clara is giving our listeners a free smoothie with purchase of a wrapper bowl. If you mention the Best of Investing, go there for lunch. Now, we're going to get right into our expert guest today, and his name is Phil Diamond. And Phil was with us a few weeks ago and did such a good job, we had to have him back.
Yeah, it was very interesting. You wouldn't think so.
Yeah. Attorney, go on.
I'm not quite sure how to take that.
And Phil is an attorney and a mediator who has practiced a wide range of civil litigation for over 35 years. He's got a long resume here, so I can only read a few things here. His mediation practice includes all areas of civil litigation, including real estate, construction, investor, and business disputes. And Phil, welcome to the Best of Investing again.
Thank you, Edward. It's good to be back.
Okay. Now, for some of our listeners who weren't with us the first time, can you explain to us what is mediation?
Sure. The best way to look at it is as a voluntary alternative dispute resolution, or ADR, process that has been developed to resolve disputes other than through formal litigation in court or through arbitration, which we'll talk about in a minute also. You'd best think about it as a structured negotiation where the parties reach their own agreement for resolution with the help of a neutral facilitator referred to as the mediator. The mediator is selected by agreement of the parties and usually retained and paid by both sides or all sides if there are more than 2 sides.
Okay.
And a successful mediation results in a binding agreement which is enforceable if necessary in the court.
Okay, and I know you guys have a couple of questions to ask.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you already have to have a lawsuit filed in order to do mediation, or can you do one without a lawsuit?
No, Brian, you don't have to have a lawsuit filed. Many mediations are held before litigation, and oftentimes that is the best time to try to resolve disputes before the time, effort, and expense and the emotional investment of litigation happens.
Yeah, litigation's very expensive.
Yeah, so Phil, I hear about mediation and arbitration as a way to, resolve, maybe a potential litigation issue. But, let's just say, I've got a partner and, I'm not liking what's going on in our partnership. Maybe I think I'm doing, the lion's share of the work. I mean, whatever it is, I have a dispute, but I'm not really comfortable confronting him about this because he's got one of those personalities that I just can't really, confront. Is that something that I can contact someone like you, and you would come in as a third party and say, maybe help, bring up the issue and come to a resolution? Is that a service you can provide?
Yeah, sure it is, and that highlights one of the most important uses of mediation, which is to help in resolving disputes where there is a pre-existing relationship between the parties to the dispute, where that relationship is worth preserving.
Yeah, it's like he's a psychologist. You have a couple of couches in there too?
Well, yeah, it's funny you say that. The whole mediation process, which I will say is relatively new, but with the caveat that it's been around, I would say perhaps the last 10 or 15, 20 years, give or take. It really arose out of psychologists and therapists being involved in divorce and family-related disputes. And from there, it expanded into the areas of litigation, and attorneys became more and more involved as mediators as well.
And speaking of which, do you have to have a lawyer to do it?
You don't. It doesn't take a law degree to be a mediator. There are many mediators who don't have law degrees. Most of the ones that I know do, and I do, I'm an attorney. There are different schools of thought as to whether it's good for a mediator to have a background in litigation. My own personal view on that, particularly in those matters that involve litigation, is that you really need somebody that has some experience in the litigation process, as well as in many cases in the substance of the dispute as well.
Well, that makes sense to me, because if you're mediating, that's the whole idea, is to avoid going to court, and with experience in how much that costs, you can tell people, listen, this is the reason why we're mediating, is so that we don't have to go through the long, arduous, expensive
Absolutely.
Is
Right.
it always a business issue, or are there other issues that would maybe not be so obvious for a mediation as a,
Well, like
as a
the
resolution?
the divorce, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's what.
Right, and the quick answer to that is that really any dispute, and I do mean any dispute, could be appropriate for mediation.
Especially that parking ticket that you got, get stopped by a cop for speeding. I want to mediate that.
Well, now we're getting into criminal law. And that's a little
criminal.
that's a little different. But when I say
There's no
any type of
mediating that.
dispute, I'm talking about disputes in what we would refer to as the civil arena, and those disputes can range from anything from investor misrepresentation claims. And by the way, I'm talking about the types of cases that I've gotten involved in over the years. Business and partnership disputes, real estate related disputes such as non-disclosure claims, and commercial and residential landlord-tenant or construction or neighbor disputes. Mediation is also used in cases involving professional errors and omissions, whether it's medical malpractice or legal
Well, I
malpractice.
can imagine in real estate, with the markets being as tumultuous as they are, I would think that you'd be quite busy with a lot of real estate.
There is a lot of real estate related litigation, and most of those cases find themselves in mediation at one point or another.
So I heard a lot about arbitration too, and can you tell me what's the difference between mediation and arbitration?
Sure.
Excellent question.
In arbitration, as opposed to mediation, there is a final outcome that is imposed upon the parties by somebody else, and by definition that person is referred to as the arbitrator. The arbitrator has many of the same powers as has a judge, including the authority to enter what's referred to as an award in favor of one side or the other.
Sounds like a lot like a court process.
Well, it is. It's an expedited court process in that you don't have a jury, so you don't have the time and expense of jury selection. The arbitrator, just as a judge sitting without a jury, actually takes evidence the same way a judge would do, although in arbitration, typically the rules of evidence that would apply in a courtroom don't apply in the arbitration process, and instead the arbitrator can hear pretty much anything he or she wants to hear, as long as it has some reasonable, rational relation to the dispute.
Well, let me ask you, what is non-binding arbitration? Would that almost be like mediation?
Yes and no. Some people think of our non-binding arbitration as mediation, in that either side can request a further trial on the issue. But there is something called non-binding arbitration that developed in the California court system some time ago, which is, or was, and I guess still is, a process whereby the parties engage an arbitrator who is actually paid by the courts, a nominal amount, to hear evidence and to give an outcome as to what should happen. the parties in that non-binding setting are not bound by that outcome. Either side can request what's called a trial de novo, which means you go on to the litigation process and to trial, just as though the arbitration never happened. The purpose of that non-binding arbitration is to try to provide a third-party evaluation, if you will, to the parties of what might happen if the case does go on to trial, again, to help the parties to come together to reach a settlement on their own.
They might decide, oh, we don't really want to do this, maybe we should mediate.
Or the parties might say,
Settlement,
this is
yeah.
probably what will happen at trial, we'll just go ahead and accept this arbitrator's award and not request a trial de novo. The problem is that we've found through experience that in most of those cases, one side or the other really didn't like the outcome, so they requested a trial de novo, and it was as if the arbitration period was time ill spent.
Isn't the perfect mediation outcome when both sides aren't really very happy?
That's what we've heard, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's going to come back and answer that question after our first commercial break. All right, here is our first trivia question. Remember, the theme is animals in the movies, right? Okay. What was the name of the show in the 1960s named after a dolphin that helped apprehend criminals? The first three callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website, lighthouse4fun.com. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. What was the name of the show in the 1960s named after a dolphin that helped apprehend criminals? Again, 888-912-1190. Make sure to include your name, address, email address, and phone number, and we'll be right back.
Good.
Good.